Today, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the Hamilton T1 ventilator, including some information related to the setup and operational steps. First, let's take a look at the left side of the ventilator. This is the USB port for downloading screenshots and uploading software. Here is the high-pressure oxygen inlet that can be connected directly to a gas supply. Below that is the low-pressure oxygen inlet that provides oxygen up to 15 liters per minute from an oxygen cylinder. Here is the AC power inlet. This is the DC power inlet. Here are the cooling air intake and the dust filter. Please do not obstruct this area. On the right side of the ventilator, we find the key ports for connecting the breathing circuit set. These are communication ports with options for end-tidal carbon dioxide. Then we have the pneumatic nebulizer port. These are the flow sensor connection ports, which is blue and white in color. And below that is the alarm speaker. Here are the patient inspiratory and expiratory ports for circuit connections. And this is where to connect the expiratory valve. Let's move to the front of the ventilator where we find an alarm lamp that flashes red for high priority alarms and yellow for low and medium priority alarms. The T1 ventilator has a touchscreen display. On the right side, there is on-off standby button, below which is the battery charge indicator. Next, there is the screen lock-unlock key. Here is the day-night screen key. This is the oxygen enrichment key that provides 100% oxygen. Next is the manual breath key, and it's for inspiratory hold as well. Below that is the print screen for downloading screenshots into the USB. The nebulizer button here provides 8 liters per minute of oxygen for 30 minutes. Then the alarm silence key. Below that, you can see the rotate and press knob. And here, we find the front cover with 2 batteries under it. One is fixed, and one is portable. Each battery is good for about 4.5 hours, together approximately 9 hours. On the back of the ventilator, we find a rear cover. Behind this cover, there is a HEPA filter and an O2 sensor here. Also, there is an air intake and dust filter. And here is a LAN connector for service. Now, let's set up the circuit. The coaxial breathing circuit comes pre-assembled. In the packet, we find the circuit, the expiratory valve, and the flow sensor. To connect the breathing circuit, you need to first install the expiratory valve. Position the valve in the expiratory port and twist it clockwise until it locks into place. Now you have to attach the circuit to the inspiratory port and the expiratory port. Properly secure both the exhalation and inhalation limbs of the breathing circuit, and then connect the flow sensor tubing. Connect the blue tubing to the blue port, and the transparent tubing to the white port. If you want to monitor the end-tidal carbon dioxide, you need to connect a CO2 sensor to the corresponding connection port, which is this one. Slide the CO2 sensor onto the airway adapter, and press them together until you hear a click. Then connect the sensor with the airway adapter to the breathing circuit before the flow sensor. Pre-op checks. Before starting pre-op checks, make sure that the ventilator is connected to both oxygen supply and power supply. Press the power button to turn on the ventilator. The ventilator will automatically run a self-test. Once that's finished, you can go ahead and touch the pre-op checks here. And here in this window, you can access the tests and calibration functions. Make sure you do the leak test and calibrate the flow sensor before connecting a new patient to the ventilator, and after you've connected a new breathing circuit or any other new component. Go to Sensors tab and make sure CO2 monitoring is enabled if you want to monitor CO2. If it is disabled, you will not be able to calibrate CO2 sensor. To perform a leak test, select this function and follow the instructions. You will receive clear on-screen guidance. Simply follow it. First, disconnect the patient. Once instructed, block the opening and upon further instruction, reconnect the circuit to the patient or test lung. A green checkmark will indicate that it is calibrated and ready. To calibrate the flow sensor, you will need the adapter provided with the circuit. Select the flow sensor calibration function and follow the instructions. Begin by disconnecting the patient, then attach the adapter to the flow sensor. Flip the flow sensor around and wait. Finally, return the flow sensor to its initial position. The green checkmark indicates that the flow sensor is calibrated. The CO2 sensor is already calibrated before the ventilator leaves the factory. You only need to calibrate the airway adapter. Press CO2 sensor and follow the instructions. The green checkmark indicates that the CO2 sensor is calibrated. You only need to calibrate the O2 sensor if a red X mark is displayed in the O2 sensor. Calibration takes around 2 minutes. Now, the Hamilton T1 ventilator is ready for use. To ventilate your patient, you have to select the right patient group, adult or pediatric. Select male or female, and then you can specify the patient's height. Based on this information, the ideal body weight will be calculated by the T1 ventilator. Press the Modes button to access the ventilation modes. The T1 ventilator supports the following types of modes: volume-controlled mode, pressure-controlled mode, pressure support mode, intelligent ventilation mode with adaptive support ventilation, NIV, and high-flow oxygen therapy. Select and confirm the mode, and press the Control button to access the ventilation settings. To review and adjust the alarms, touch the Alarms button and adjust them as needed. These are the upper alarm limits, and these are the lower alarm limits. There is also a second window where you can find additional alarm settings. And by pressing the Buffer button, you can view the list of the most recent alarms. Now, to start ventilation, touch the Start Ventilation button. And touch Modes tab to change ventilation modes if required. To make another setting change while ventilating, your basic ventilator settings are here on the right, so just choose the setting you'd like to change and confirm, or go to Controls where you'll find all of the adjusted settings. On the left, these are for main monitoring parameters, and on the top, you will find the selected ventilation mode, as well as the patient's chosen group and gender. To access all other monitoring data, including ETCO2 if enabled, open the monitoring window. Let's move now to the graphic area. The airway pressure waveform is always displayed. Right underneath that, there is another part you can customize and select what you would like to be displayed, whether it's other waveforms, loops, trends, or even intelligent graphic panels. To do so, touch anywhere in the graphic area and select the desired graphic. To stop ventilation and enter the standby mode, just press the Power Standby key, then touch the Activate Standby button. Now this is the System tab where we can find various ventilator information. In this window there is the tests and calibrations that we performed already. In the Sensors tab, you'll find the controls for turning on and off each sensor, such as the O2 and the CO2 sensors. Then next you'll find the Settings tab where you find the loudness adjustment from 1 to 10, with 10 being the loudest and 1 the quietest. Next tab is called Events, which is the logbook for the last 1,000 events, including setting changes and alarm messages. Next tab is the Tools tab where we can select between high-pressure oxygen and low-pressure oxygen. To change these settings, remember that the ventilator should be on standby mode. Finally, to turn off the ventilator, press and hold the Power Standby key for about 3 seconds.